Okay, you guys, so I just wanted to make this video. I was watching this Joe Rogan podcast about, with Gabrielle Reese. They were talking about um, the ethics of becoming an Instagram model and how that affects young girls, and they got into talking about cell phones and just how social media affects children, and they started talking about the differences between how social media and technology affects boys versus how it affects girls. And it just really frustrated me to see some of the smartest people I know being so stupid when they really should know better. Um, they were trying to say that there's just a huge difference between how you can approach social media for a girl than how you can approach the issue for a boy. And I just think you really shouldn't make such a difference. You shouldn't make such a divide between boys and girls. I actually think that most youth mental illness comes from coddling or not coddling a child simply on the basis of gender. Every children are unique. Every child has a gift and a talent, and they're not all going to be the same. So the more you encourage to force these expectations that all boys love porn, which is what they were talking about, the more you encourage these expectations that all boys love porn or that all girls need constant validation, that's not true. The more you enforce these expectations, the more you will isolate the children that truly have something to offer the world. Because children are precious, and they're all different. So yeah, it just fucking kills me, when I see some the smartest people I look up to, like Joe Rogan, or the people who are currently having the conversation about children, being completely ignorant of the fact that not everything has to do with gender. If you get to know the child, and find out what's important to them. Some boys are artistic and shy, and they don't watch porn and they don't roughhouse. To completely ignore the emotional needs of these children is, I would call it abuse on a societal scale. Some girls aren't necessarily tomboys. They just don't feel the need to constantly get validation from others. Not all girls are like that growing up. So they aren't vulnerable to these kinds of things. They aren't vulnerable to Instagram models because they don't need constant validation. That's not the way all girls are. What they are vulnerable to, however, is being isolated and neglected. So you should stop making everything about gender, because children don't. Literally ask a child. Children they don't make things about gender. They don't make things about race, and they don't make things about religion. Children make things about people. They only react to how they are treated. They don't make things about gender, so why the fuck do these people have to make everything about gender? When I hear people talk about children or raising children, they sound like they're just fucking stumbling around in the dark, knocking over shit. That's because they are. They lack the fundamental way to see children that everyone should have. Children don't see gender. They don't see race. They don't see anything other than how people treat them and how they are treated. So when you treat a small, sensitive boy like he's supposed to be different, he's going to reject it. He will go his own way, and that way may be dangerous. Same goes for girls. If you push them into these expectations, they may fucking go their own way because you really don't understand their feelings. Just think today about all the struggles people have with their sense of gender. The extreme distress someone feels when they feel like they're trapped in their own body. No one should ever feel trapped in their own fucking body. No one's ever going to understand them because they got this fucking body they don't like. People look at this body and they assume shit. No one should ever feel trapped just because you're ignorant. Like, uh, I can accept that gender is a spectrum. I can accept that. Some males are more masculine than other males. Some females are more feminine than other males. And that's fine. That's fine. Everyone can fall somewhere. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Or bisexuality. That's fine. I can accept all this shit. That gender is a spectrum. That's fine. But that's not the issue here. What the issue really is here is just, it's not fair. You know what I mean? You should never even talk about children by saying, most people are this way. Most people don't have an issue with their gender. Most people fit a stereotype. Intersex people, transgender people, gender nonconforming youth, or just a fucking kid that doesn't watch porn, I guess, apparently. You could say that that's a minority, but you should never, ever, for the sake of argument, pretend something that isn't true. You shouldn't say that boys and girls are a certain way for the sake of argument. Never. You should never pretend anything for the sake of argument. You should only talk about the truth for sake of argument. Because if you pretend that all children are a certain way for the sake of argument, then that's not fair. That's not fair to the children that you're forgetting. And what you're fucking doing is you're creating a generation of lost children that feel that they aren't relevant to the conversation. And it needs to fucking stop, because this is what children watch. They're on social media, and this is the way we're talking. The world we're creating has to be good for children to grow up in. And if we make every single fucking thing about gender, the difference between boys and girls, boys are this way, girls are this way, if you make everything about that, then that's not fair. That's not fair to them, because they don't make it about that. And that's fine. Gender is a spectrum. That's fair. That's fine. Fucking, dress how you want, express how you want, fucking fuck who you want. But these are children that we're talking about. So you really shouldn't force these stereotypes on them, because it's just not fair. And you should be careful when you talk about them too, because they're watching. That's all I had to say about that.